he seeks out these kind of crises. He seeks out opportunities to, insert himself. I think, both because like he is a kind of like instinctive marketer, and so if whether we're talking about the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, which he had promised to fix, or wildfires years ago, or the cave, the Thai cave thing. Yeah. He this is kind of what he does. So that's one thing. As Joel says, he is marketing to some extent Starlink as a potential like defense technology, as something that goes beyond just like a way for you to get the internet in a rural area, but maybe something that's going to be sold to governments. And of course, he is trying to use this trip and acknowledged on X earlier today that he's trying to use this trip to sort of combat or do damage control, I suppose, from the endorsement of an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that happened a couple of weeks ago that has led to massive pullback from advertisers and sort of lots of back and forth with Elon Musk, who has, I should say, denied being an anti-Semite and has said this is all just a media conspiracy.
But he did it.
He made the comment and he's attempting to essentially say that, well, I'm pro-Israel, so how could I, I've taken the time to fly, halfway around the world. How could somebody who does that be an anti-Semite? Of course, the concern from advertisers, I think anytime you see a potentially violent conspiracy theory amplified, like that's upsetting, but also the concern is seeing their ads next to this stuff.
Right.
And that's something that arguably X hasn't done that much to fix yet. They are suing Media Matters, so they're taking this fight to court, but it's not clear that they've actually changed their approach in any way.
Which I think that Max brings up the numbers, and when this first happened, and the episode that we put in motion for it, you'd seen a trickle of in pause and spending. But boy, that number gets bigger and bigger now on X, and the companies involved have only gotten bigger.
Yeah.
And the brand risk is just like, why bother, right?
Yeah, well, and it's a lot easier to say Linda Yaccarino. There's this interesting tension between Musk, who's out there kind of mixing it up with these like far right figures in his own personal social media handle, and then Linda Yaccarino, the CEO of X, acting like a normal media company CEO, saying, "Hey, we're working really hard to combat hate speech, and by the way, we've got some excellent opportunities. And hey, have you checked out the NFL? Sports is really big on X." She's doing the things you'd sort of expect a media executive to do, and in certain ways being undermined by the owner, who is just on his own, kind of like amplifying theories, tweeting sort of seemingly crazy stuff, and just making it all the harder for her to convince advertisers this is a great place to like sell pharmaceuticals or market your Black Friday discounts or whatever.
Well, Max, how do we separate and can we separate Elon from Starlink, from X, from Tesla?
I mean, there is no separation. I mean, that's what's unique about him. It's that, he runs these companies, even though they are nominally separate, even though, Tesla is a public company.
Has a board.
Yeah, has a board. SpaceX is a privately held company with a lot of big time outside investors. X, formerly known as Twitter, has these lenders who are obviously, interested third parties. But he kind of likes to blur the lines. I mean, you see executives kind of bounce from one company to the next. You have him talking all the time about the way these companies, kind of enhance one another. So it's like, it's very hard. And when it's working well, it becomes this amazing advantage. You think back a couple years ago when SpaceX launched a Tesla Roadster into space, right? Just an amazing marketing stunt that it sort of highlights how forward-looking Tesla is and gives SpaceX, I guess, something to send into orbit or send into outer space. But when it's not working, when you have these kind of crises and they can kind of like blow back on other businesses. And what we're seeing with SpaceX, with Starlink, is Musk trying to find, essentially a new revenue stream.